Tonight we're outside of the shed and we're going to be installing ShockWiz to our Cane Creek inline. ShockWiz is SRAM's new suspension monitoring device, which allows us to monitor how our suspension is reacting whilst we're riding.
In short, good times.
This information allows us to calibrate our shock to get the absolute best performance. Everything from dynamic sag, high speed, low speed compression and rebound. It gives us hints and tips on how to optimize all of these settings to get the best possible performance out of our suspension equipment. ShockWiz is compatible with any air spring, so rear shocks or forks, it'll work absolutely fine as long as the positive and the negative air springs aren't connected in some way. It won't, however, work with coil forks or shocks. So for me, it's going to work absolutely ideal on my Cane Creek inline, but it's no good for my Marzocchi 350R, which is a coil fork with air preload. Installation is pretty simple. Once it's on the shock, we'll be able to link it to the phone app, and all that data will be transferred live via Bluetooth to my phone, so that I'll be able to record the suspension's workings whilst I'm riding. This is pretty exciting because this is top tier technology now at a level where the average rider like myself can enjoy the benefits previously only enjoyed by professionals in larger teams. This kind of shock telemetry information will allow me to get the absolute best out of my equipment, and takes a lot of the guesswork out of suspension setup, as it can be a little bit of a minefield if you're not 100% comfortable with what you're riding, or if you're riding a new bike or a new shock and you're unfamiliar with it. Which in this case is perfect for me, as I have both a new shock and a new frame. I don't know if those characteristics are specific to the shock performance or if it's to do with the kinematics of the frame. So having something that takes some of that guesswork out for me is absolutely perfect. So what do I need to mount this to my bike?
The ShockWiz, the adapter hoses, cable ties, a shock pump, and a smartphone with the app. Start off by cleaning down the shock or fork you're going to mount it to. You'll notice the ShockWiz has a curved and a flat side. The curved side is to fit it against the body of your shock. You'll want to place the ShockWiz against the shock to test for fit. Now the ShockWiz comes with a long and a short adapter hose. The short adapter hose is the most useful for attaching to a shock. There are two air inlet valves. Either of them will work when attaching to the fork of the shock, and then you'll fit the ShockWiz to your shock body using cable ties as tightly as possible.
Following the calibration wizard on the phone app, I'm now going to go through the shock cycles, compressing and extending the shock to calibrate the ShockWiz to my shock, to my phone, and we're good to go. So that's us now calibrated. Pretty straightforward process. It walked you through each step of the way. Installation itself was pretty straightforward, just some cable ties and a little adapter tube. Let's find out what it says on the trail.
When everyone else brought trail bikes and enduro weapons, James just couldn't help himself and came in his cross bike, determined to get climbing comps. So I went to Fennell with some riding buddies on the hunt for a new section of single track, tying some old favourites, and ended up getting absolutely lost and on the totally wrong side of the hill. So I ended up going on a bit of an XE hack to try and find something we any of us recognised. As soon as we saw some fire road, it was just a matter of going off piste to try and pick our way back to where we recognised. By the time we trekked back over to somewhere we thought we recognised, further conflab thought we weren't as low down the hill as we thought. Turned out we were wrong. We were right at the bottom of the hill and lost all our ascent, giving us very little options in terms of single track. Not to be deterred, we dropped in, determined to try and get some descent into the day. Best crash ever. With myself and Joe running out of time for the morning, we cut off from the main group and took the last few ribbons of single track to take us back to the cars. These in fact actually proved to be pretty good for the ShockWiz, as they brought in a lot of roots and ditches and some nice compressions to put the bike through its paces, as all that climbing and cross-country descent, whilst giving me some feedback, wasn't the most applicable to my riding. I then went home, looked at what the ShockWiz suggested and made the adjustments, and then took the bike out for a ride later on. It had suggested that what I had suspected is I could do with a higher air pressure was correct, but what I had thought was a rebound issue was in fact to do with both the high and low speed compression. So I put a few clicks into both of them, put a few more PSI in the air can, and headed up to Scolty to ride some of my regular trails. Didn't have a whole lot of time, so it was just a little mini loop, but this would still take in some fire road climbs, some single track technical climbs, as well as a pretty nice little technical descent which would have a few rock slabs, lots of wee drops and braking bumps, and plenty of roots to boot. So even with those minor adjustments of only 5% more in the air spring and 2 to 3 more clicks with the high and low speed compression, making it a touch firmer, I could feel a big difference on the trail. The bike was a lot more reactive and was sitting a lot higher in its travel and responded much better to repeated bumps and hits on the trail. It was a little bit firmer than I was expecting, to be honest, with such minor adjustments, but those are things that I could still dial in or just get used to, still adjusting to the new bike.
So, what have we learned about ShockWiz? Well, for a start, it works. It's a really straightforward, easy to use system that gives us actual, useful, usable suggestions and information about how our suspension is operating. It works really quickly and really easily, and works in pretty much real time, and it gives you really helpful pointers as to what kind of terrain you should ride next as well, so that you can get even better response and feedback. And the thing to remember is the app operates on a percentage score based system, 100% being a perfect score obviously, and it has 4 different suspension tunes to work with, from really soft and playful at one end to much firmer pedal efficient tune at the other, and that's still only 4 settings, so your preferred feel might not be a perfect score. You might feel best at 80% of efficient or 75% playful, but that doesn't mean that it's not going to be useful for you. It's going to give you quantifiable results and suggestions to really fine degrees of 5% adjustment here, 2 clicks adjustment there, to the point that you can ride a flowier, more pedally trail and it'll give you a certain amount of feedback, and then go and do a much steeper, rougher, rootier, rock garden filled trail, and it will adjust the feedback based on what you are riding. I think for the best result you do need at least a weekend. You can't just go on one ride. I think you need to be able to go for a ride with your base settings, take the suggestions from ShockWiz, and then go again for another fairly substantial ride. Again, the usual mantras in terms of shock tuning of riding trails, you know, so that you're going to be hitting them fast and aggressively, so you're going to get those compressions into the shock or fork, are important. Also trails, you know, you can repeat them over and over, so if you make those adjustments and go for a second ride later that day or the following day, you're going to be able to, again, attack in those trails and try and go full tilt. Things that I don't like about it, the app can do with some refinement. The fact that I can't store a session and then review that data later and compare one ride session to another ride session, and the data is locked to that particular ride, is frustrating. But I'm sure that will be solved in app updates in future. Who is this going to be most useful for? Well, people like myself are setting up new suspension with lots of settings, such as with inline. But I think if I was a racer racing a regular series, it'd be absolutely invaluable. The fact that I could put it on to my fork or shock for a practice session and then get adjustments specific to that track. As every venue's got a different trail characteristic, we're going to have potentially different suspension settings for different locations, different venues, different types of track, and being able to get that in on the practice day so that I have a perfect shock tune for my race run. Absolutely perfect and ideal. To buy a ShockWiz is half the cost of a top tier fork. But what is the point of a top tier fork if it's only working half as well as it can? So if you're racing seriously, then I would seriously suggest you consider it as an investment. Lots of places are renting them. I got mine from Bike Remedy, so see if your local bike shop, or if you're in the Aberdeenshire area, go speak to the guys at Bike Remedy and see if they can fit you up with a rental on the ShockWiz to see how it's going to be useful for you. However, it's been great fun. It's given me lots of useful information that gave really fast quantifiable results, and I would definitely recommend using ShockWiz, or at least riding with it for a weekend. In short, ShockWiz, good times. If you like this video, don't forget to hit the subscribe button here and give us a like down here, and we'll see you next time in the shed. Forgot my tea. I should have brought a cup of tea.